So we have some not great polls for Joe Biden. We talked about them the other day. There was one poll that Trump was up 10 points nationally, which I think is his best poll ever. Now, to be fair, that is an outlier, but also it should be pointed out that in the average of polls, Trump is still up +2 over Biden right now. Now, remember, Biden's going to have to win by like 3 points or more in order to win the election because the way it works, Democrats have an advantage with the popular vote, but Republicans seem to have the built-in advantage with the Electoral College and the states that really, really matter. Okay, so here's MSNBC basically sounding the alarm and talking about how Joe Biden's kind of in trouble, and you got to take this guy Trump seriously. He's got 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges, but it seems like Joe Biden's age and his cognitive ability is sort of weighing against him a decent amount, maybe even more than the criminal charges are weighing against Trump. So let's listen to this. But they're going to have a massive omission here, which drives me crazy. And we'll talk about that too. Let's watch.
But obviously, the fact that the president is struggling this much against every Republican we put him up against raises the question, where is that coming from? The most obvious answer is just this, a simple question of job approval. Barely 40% approve of Joe Biden's performance.
And we have to note, 56%. That's the highest disapproval rating for President Biden since he took office. That's significant.
Now, let's pause on this for a second to point out what is happening that's leading to this. Right now, what is happening that's making almost everybody, a huge swath of the country, be like, I don't like it. Look, the biggest failure I can point to is that the COVID era expansions of the social safety net have now totally gone away. Completely. And there was a number of good expansions of the social safety net. Whether it's the expansion of the earned income tax credit or the child tax credit or expansions of programs like WIC, there were just a number of things that were this solid cushion, unemployment insurance, solid cushion for people where since times were rough during the pandemic, they had something to fall back on where it wasn't the end of the world. And then, of course, think about it. Early on in his time in office, he cut those $1,400 checks. When he did that, he had his highest approval rating ever. It was over 50%. I think it was 54% was his approval rating at the time when he cut people checks. So there have been legislative victories, whether it's, the CHIPS Act or the infrastructure bill or the IRA, and there's good provisions that are in that. But the fact of the matter is, if you get rid of the better social safety net and it gets weaker and more meager, I think that's where this largely comes from. Mix that with just the optics of a guy who's cognitively not there right now, clearly not on top of his game. I think that's a potent mix, and I think that's why people are like, sort of screw you. So that's why I think we are where we are. But let's continue because it gets better.
To look at what's driving that too here. In one big area, no surprise, it is the economy. Look at this contrast.
See, I think that proves my point because when you look at the unemployment rate, it's relatively low. When you look at inflation, it's come down massively. So it's not those things that are the problem. I think the bigger problem is what I pointed out. It's that the social safety net has gotten way more meager since the COVID era expansion fell away. And so I think that's where this comes from.
April of 21, months after Biden took office, nearly half the country was satisfied with where the economy was. Then, now, barely 1 in 4 Americans satisfied with the economy. There's also this. We found an enthusiasm gap between the two parties. We asked folks on a scale of 1 to 10, how enthusiastic are you about the presidential election? And you can see Republican to Democrat, there is a gap right there. Where's the lag for Democrats? We found a couple places. Non-white voters, you could see significantly less enthusiastic than white voters. And then how about this age gap? The youngest group of voters who Democrats have been trying to get excited and motivated, a nearly 50-point gap there.
That's huge. And that is definitely going to hurt the Democrats.
Gap there.
So really an uphill battle to try to make sure voters don't stay home if you're Democrats.
Yeah, that's it. And the problem for Democrats, too, the lack of enthusiasm about the election, there's clearly a lack of enthusiasm about the president himself, because we asked primary voters on the Democratic side, do you want options next year besides Biden? 59% said yes, they do. This is not a normal number for an incumbent. We asked the same question a year before Donald Trump sought re-election of Republicans. Only 37% 57% wanted more choices then. That's a very high number.
Yeah, this is like the inverse of each other.
So they bring up at the end there, look at this number, man. Such a high percentage of Democrats want other options. And I've seen polls where it's even higher than over 70% of Democrats are like, I want options. I want more than just Biden. This is one of many segments I've seen now. Many segments talking about this. Whether it's on CNN, MSNBC, NBC. Oh my God, Biden's really in a bad place. These numbers aren't good. People want options. Where are the options? What's going on here? How many of these segments have mentioned that he does have opponents? Donut. They are literally just pretending Marianne Williamson doesn't exist as they dump on Biden. It's the worst of all worlds. It's the worst of all worlds. Let's talk about how he's screwed, he's toast, he's done, these numbers are terrible, these numbers are horrendous, he's getting beaten by a guy with all these criminal charges, this is a mess, people want options. But oh yeah, the media, supposed to be the truth tellers, people give you facts and information. I'm not even going to mention he has opponents. And he has one really good opponent, Marianne Williamson. So why? Why would they not bring her up? Why would they not talk about her? They wouldn't even mention her. Why? I think you all know why. Because they've already decided, unserious candidate. Unserious. Well, hold on now. You're not supposed to be the one to make that judgment from the jump and then superimpose that on the way you talk about the race. That's not on you to be the judge, jury, and executioner on these issues. You're supposed to give everybody a fair shake, even a candidate I don't like RFK. You're supposed to say, okay, yeah, these people are running. Here are their policies. They went and spoke at this college this week, and they went and gave an interview here this week, and here's something they said that's controversial, and let's play it, and let's talk about it. You're supposed to give news and information and facts and educate about the world. But you are warping the world by pretending he doesn't even have opponents. You brought up, people want options, without pointing out there are options. If every single time the media brought up a bad poll number about Joe Biden, they were obligated to bring up Marianne Williamson and the fact that she is an opponent against him right now, she'd be 10 points higher. No doubt about it. But they've already predetermined she's not serious. She's not serious. Therefore, we are going to manifest that and bring it into reality by never mentioning her. Guys, I've said this before. I would actively choose to give me a hostile media over a media that's utterly indifferent. And I would prefer that. I would prefer the media dump on Marianne Williamson 24/7 versus just pretend like she doesn't exist. Because even dumping on her is more honest because they're telling you how they really feel about her. Pretending she doesn't exist is just dishonest. She is running. She is an option. You're the media. You're supposed to bring up the options. And they just refuse to do it. Even in segments where they talk about how his poll numbers are terrible, people want other options, they don't even say, hey, by the way, there is another option. They don't even say, hey, by the way, there is another option, and I don't really think this option is serious, but it's my duty to explain to you that she exists and here are her positions. They don't even do that. It is insufferable. So I think they've already determined she's unserious. Therefore, we're going to manifest that and bring it into reality by treating her like she's unserious, never talking about her ever, no matter what, ever. And then people are left thinking, oh my God, the only choice is a guy who's 7 seconds from death, who's cognitively impaired, who can't get through a full sentence, who clearly they're trying to hide because they know that he shouldn't be in public all that much, because then we'll see really how bad it is. He probably needs Adderall to function, right? And I'm fair. I'll tell you guys when I think Biden does something good. I do it all the time, much to many of your chagrin. You don't like it when I'm objective and fair until you hear the good things. But I can also tell you the bad things. And I can also tell you the way the media is acting here is incredibly dishonest. By the way, just so everybody knows, yet again, here's what Marianne Williamson is running on. She is reviving FDR's new Bill of Rights, his economic Bill of Rights, which he proposed and he passed away before we could get it implemented. But the economic Bill of Rights is the right to a job that pays a living wage, the right to a voice in the workplace through a union. So right to a union, that's huge. The right to universal health care, the right to free higher education, the right to affordable housing, the right to a clean environment, the right to meaningful endowment of resources at birth. I don't know if that's like baby bonds or something like that. The right to sound banking and financial services. That sounds to me like bringing back Glass-Steagall and regulating the big banks so they're not a whole bunch of crooks. The right to an equitable and fair justice system, the right to cultural and civic involvement in democratic life. So she's reviving and updating FDR's Economic Bill of Rights. These policies are way better than Joe Biden. They just are. They go further. They bring us closer to being a thriving social democracy. You know, and it'd be nice if people knew they had this option, right? If guys, imagine how different the world could be and how different the race could be if Marianne Williamson got coverage in mainstream media every time she gave a speech, every time she did an interview, if they sought her out to talk to her, to give her interviews, to challenge her. Just imagine if people knew there is a Biden opponent. Guys, people don't, this is what you need to understand. People don't follow politics as closely as you do if you're watching this channel. They don't. They just don't. And my guess is the majority of Democratic primary voters have no idea that Biden has some challengers. No idea whatsoever. And look, whose fault is that? Yes, on the one hand, you can say, hey, these people should be more interested. They should be more involved. It's on them to figure it out. I think there's a somewhat fair argument to make on that front. I do. But I also know for sure there's a lot of reasonable criticism to make of the media insofar as they just ignore candidates they don't think are serious. And they've already predetermined she's not serious, and so they make that a reality by treating her that way. And it just goes to show you how powerful the media is. They do lies by commission, and they do lies by omission. The way they cover Marianne is a lie by omission. It's complete and utter indifference. It is insisting it can only be Biden. That's what they're going with. Oh, man, it's really frustrating. Because you know what, man? If you really do believe that this is the most important election of our lifetime, and I actually believe that. I've kind of hesitated in the past to say that, because people say that about every election. I've hesitated in the past to make that argument for a bunch of elections. This one I truly believe is the most important election of our lifetime. And if you really believe that, it's tough to go into that election with Joe Biden. It really is. Because even just the optics of it, even just like he's really old and he's really lost a couple steps, even just that is like, you want to roll the dice with maybe handing the country over to Trump again with this guy when we have another option of a brilliant woman who's intelligent, who's well-spoken, who moves people, and who is running on a really awesome platform. We have that option, and they just pretend like we don't. And there's only so much we could do to try to break through, right? We're just a tiny sliver of the media here on YouTube with my left-wing talk show. But God damn it, this is where we are right now. This is where we are. So anyway, it's truly unfair what they're doing to Marianne. Even when they accurately point out how much Biden is struggling, they don't bring her up. I mean, what would I say? I don't think the media is going to change, even though they should, right? I mean, we should force them to change however we can. But beyond that, if I'm Marianne, I try to elbow my way into that room, dude. I try to elbow my way into that room, do as many interviews as possible, even if they're just hostile, even if it's only going on Fox News, just to fight with them on a daily basis. That's what I would do. Anything to raise noise and awareness about the fact that you exist and you're here and you're another option. That's what I would do if I was her. It's truly unfair that she's in this position, but you got to deal with the cards that you're dealt, right? You got to play the cards you're dealt. It's that simple. So shame on them, man. Shame on them. It's like now they're at the point where they are shitting on Biden relentlessly 24/7, even to the point where I don't think they bring up any of his policy victories, right? They don't even bring up any of the positive things. They're doing that relentlessly while also not pointing out, hey, there's another option in the race. So it's just a worst of all worlds. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.